Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. We just wrapped up our interview with Zachary Beach, CEO of smartrealestatecoach.com. Anthony, what was the takeaway or two that you had?
I tell you what I really liked of what their business model is they are solving problems, right? And really, if you want to make money and have a business, the best option is to find a problem and then create a solution for it.
Yeah.
And so what I like about this model is that there's people that had some temporary difficult times financially, and maybe they can't qualify for a home by a traditional bank, but they do have the assets and the income to do it. But this allows you to help solve that problem while also generating some value, which will generate income. Also, this is a prime example where you don't need a lot of money to create a lot of money. This is going to create some effort and some work, but I just want, because I feel a lot of people, I want to do this, I want to do that, but I just don't have the money. This is an option where you can accomplish your goals without having or needing a lot of money up front. Cam, any takeaways that you had?
Same, yeah. Either they don't have a lot of money or they don't want to put it up right away, right? As you want to get down this road and find out if it's a good fit for you. So this is a great option. My big takeaway one is, their overall business model is very similar to ours, right? As far as kind of education first, and then they've got kind of a framework. Their education is really based upon the creative financing options. One is a lease option, 2 being seller financing, and then 3 subject to. But he also shares the process in which they apply their coaching principles to. 1 is mindset, 2 is skill set, and then 3 is implementing systems, which, again, very similar to what we're helping clients do and implement. And the big takeaway that I had was, they got some great shirts. I'm not going to lie. If you guys go to their website, I've got 2 of them. One of them says Wicked Smart is the shirt. And, if I've got a suggestion for them, their next merchandise should be like Rick. Is he shares a story of a gentleman that has found success in their program. And he talks about Rick kind of being a government employee for 30 years and had reached tremendous success in just 3 years. And so that would be my suggestion to them. Make some merchandise, says be like Rick, and also my suggestion for you guys as well.
Cameron, I hate to correct you, but I've been on their website. It says Wicked Smart.
Okay. What did I say?
Smart. Okay. It's Wicked Smart.
You're right.
Okay?
You're right. Great shirts. But guys, hope you guys enjoy this interview with Zachary Beach, again, CEO real estate of smartrealestatecoach.com. Enjoy this episode.
Take care.
If you're an investor or want to be an investor and you're looking to create passive income that exceeds your monthly expenses, then this is the podcast for you. Here on the Infinite Wealth Podcast, we combine the philosophies of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, along with Nelson Nash's infinite banking concept. Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. And guys, today we've got Zachary Beach, CEO of smartrealestatecoach.com. Zachary, welcome.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me, guys. This has been, I'm blessed to be able to actually watch what happens behind the scenes, as this was just quite comical before we jumped on here. So I'm sure we're going to have a good time here today. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Zachary, I usually save an introduction till kind of we go back and add something on the front. I'm going to read a little bit right now, if you don't mind. And Anthony,
Sure.
I don't care if you mind because I'm going to do it anyways. This says that Zachary is CEO, partner of smartrealestatecoach.com, which is a 3-time Inc. 5000 fastest growing company that focuses on transforming W-2 employees into creative financing real estate investors. I got one more thing to add. And it says that you guys are operating all over North America and have successfully completed hundreds of transactions, assisting students in doing the same at any given time with little to no money in the deal and no banks involved. Zachary, that's why I wanted to read that, is because that's why we're here today, right? We've got a bunch of clients that are looking to get into real estate. One of the biggest obstacles that we hear often is that I don't have any money, right? Or I don't have enough to get started. And so, man, we invited you on here today, hopefully dispel some of those myths.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, about a decade ago, I was a bartender and personal trainer, and didn't really have much credit, much money, or had the ability to go to a bank. So I could completely relate to that. Or if you got your audience that's sitting here saying, "Well, if I actually want to go invest in a single family or a small multifamily and to get started, the amount of money that is required is significantly higher than to get into one of our creative deals." So I can totally understand that too as well.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right. So we've mentioned this word tagline a little bit already, but Zachary, what is creative financing? Can you give our listeners a little bit of background on that?
Yeah, when we say creative financing, or if you're above the age of 40, knowing it as buying on terms, it simply just means, well, I have to say it because like nowadays, like creative financing is like this like big key word.
Yeah.
But before it was buying on terms was the way in which it was, kind of spread and marketed. And really all it means is that you are going to not go to a bank. You're not going to put down large down payments, and you're not going to personally guarantee any debt. But really, in simplification, it just means that you are solving a seller's challenge initially by buying a piece of real estate, by doing it through a couple of different strategies that we use. Number one would be buying a property on a lease option, which just means that you control an asset without ownership and you have the ability to buy it. And within that strategy, there's even a breakdown of even further more strategies there as well. And then more importantly, or more relevant, you have seller financing, which is really giving the seller the opportunity to be the bank, where you buy the property and then they hold the position on the property and you make payments to them. Lots of tax benefits associated with it. Lots of tired landlords have the ability to still cash flow property without actually operating it anymore. And then third and final strategy, as far as our top three, would then be buying property subject to the existing loan, which really just means that you're utilizing somebody else's mortgage. So you buy the property, you keep the mortgage intact, and then you just make payments on that seller's behalf. This is how we're able to cash flow properties in today's market. Even though the end buyer today would get like a 6% interest rate or a 7% interest rate, we're able to tap into people's mortgages that were originally created 3-5 years ago, 10 years ago, that were at a much lower interest rate. And those strategies are how we're really been able to solve a ton of challenges today in today's market, but also be able to create a lot of profits for not only us, but for our students as well.
Could you maybe walk us through an example?
I sure can.
And first, one thing would be is if let's say that I have a house and then I'm looking to sell it.
Yeah.
Why would I do some sort of sub 2? Why don't I that?
Yeah, let's kind of, we'll take everything as like a broad stroke right now, because I'm assuming your audience, this is a lot of brand new concepts. So let's take everything broad stroke, and then one of the number one questions we get asked is exactly that, which is, why do people sell to you? Like, if you're buying a property without your own cash, without paying off their loan, asking somebody to hold a mortgage, like, why would somebody do that? Well, if we operate on a spectrum here, we have on one side, you have a lot of financial challenges, which are happening very often in today's market, right? You got people that are going through death, divorce, highest amount of credit card debt in a very long period of time right now. You have inflation. People are having trouble paying their bills. You have taxes on properties that are drastically increasing, right? Because they bought it and during COVID, market went up. Now they're all being assessed. And now the taxes have now gone up drastically. So now you have affordability issue when it comes to not only the person that owns it, but the person that's trying to buy it. So you have all of these financial challenges. And then on the other side, you have all of the people that have what we call a property challenge or a real estate challenge, which means they have an asset, but they've either inherited it or they are currently a landlord and they don't want to deal with the property anymore. They don't want to manage tenants, toilets, or trash, or they want to maximize their price, right? They've been told that this market has drastically increased over the last 3 years, and now the market might be going down or flattening out, but they still have this like price in their mind. So when they have a real estate challenge, it's not that they need money today. They actually just want that asset to be managed by somebody else or to be purchased by somebody else. But at the same time, they still want to maximize their profit. So if you're looking at that same spectrum, the ones that are in all the financial hardship tend to be those of like a subject to deal, right? So you got somebody that doesn't have a lot of equity, or they're behind on payments, or they can't make their next payment. This is why people will then go ahead and sell us that property and keep the mortgage in place, because our options are better than the traditional sense, right? And why I say that is, let's just take a property, right? Anthony, you have a property, it's 300,000, you owe 295,000 on it, right? Very highly leveraged, which is very normal right now. And if you were to go sell that property on the traditional market with an agent, then you would have to come out of pocket at least the 5 to 6% for the realtor, plus closing costs. So you have no equity in the property, and actually you are paying money to leave that house, right? And these are like nice move-in ready homes. These are great properties. The last couple of properties I bought, they've only owned it for 12, 18, 24 months. But they're coming against challenges, and they bought it for the interest rate. They didn't buy it for the price. So we'll step in and we'll solve that problem by saying, look, you can just walk away. Or if anything, I might be able to give you some moving money. I then will just step in, because that mortgage is advantageous for us to do so, because it's at a low interest rate. And I know I can cash flow it by placing, and we'll talk about in the future, a tenant buyer or somebody that needs time to qualify for a bank loan. And then they'll pay me on that cash. So that's why a lot of these people are more than willing to do so. Important note, like as we kind of walk through creative financing or walk through these strategies, because there's a lot of questions that are going to pop up. And that is, we all need to focus on solving the person's problem. The real estate is secondary to the person. If we can identify their motivation, whether that be positive or negative, and then be able to provide a solution utilizing one of these strategies, then we have a deal. If we can't provide a solution to this particular person, then they're way better off going to get an agent or wholesaling the property or utilizing a different strategy.
Okay. So we focus on solving the problem.
You mentioned 3 different kind of creative strategies up until this point, creative financing strategies. You mind maybe touching on each one of those?
For sure. So as we walk through, let me just give you some stories in regards to it. So
Perfect.
One of the most recent properties that I bought subject to the existing loan, which again, just simply means that when you buy the property, you're just going to leave the mortgage in place. You're not going to go get new financing. That's the only real difference when it comes to these deals. Instead of going to get another bank loan to pay off the original bank loan, you just instead leave it in place. And then you now make payments on that seller's behalf.
Now, Zach, real quick, just to clarify, so who owns the property in this situation?
Yep. So your company is going to purchase the property. You will hold title. Whether you're holding title in a trust or an LLC or personally, depending on what you're doing, I always recommend a trust. Then that's who's going to own it. Then the seller, the only thing the seller is still connected to is the debt on the property or the mortgage.
What does the lender have to say about this transaction?
Well, the reality is the lender doesn't know. And when I say that, some people are going to be like, well, is this illegal? No, it's not illegal. This is a contractual issue between the seller and the mortgage, because the only thing that actually matters in this scenario, or most people are concerned about, is the due on sales clause that's in the mortgage, right? Yeah. It's like, it's like 95% of mortgages have it, if not all of them. Now, the due on sales clause just says that the mortgage company has the right to call the loan due, right? It doesn't say that they're absolutely obligated to call the loan due. So in that circumstance, a majority of the time in which we're doing this, and I should say a large portion of the time when we do this, we're actually improving, catching up, and maintaining the mortgage. So let's, again, give a scenario. Recently bought a property from a seller. They have relocated to Florida. This particular seller was going to be unable to make their next payment. So if we didn't step in to buy this property, what would have happened with that mortgage? that seller would have been unable to make that payment, and then probably unable to make the next payment, and then unable to make the next payment. So now all of a sudden, two things negatively are happening in that scenario. You have the seller's credit going down because they're unable to fulfill their obligations. And then you now have the bank loan now going into arrears and then eventually maybe foreclosure. So the seller or the bank does not win in that scenario. So instead, we step in, acquire the property, ensure that those payments are made because we're a professional real estate investor, right? And then, so now the seller's credit is going to improve because we're making payments on time. And the bank now is making money off of that loan. So I know I went a little bit to the right side here, but I'm just trying to give you guys like behind the scenes here. So it creates a massive win for everybody involved. And the likelihood that a bank is going to call a loan due is very small, especially if you're making the payments on time, right? We hear bank loan calls being or loans being called due if people stop making payments, right? And then all of a sudden they go check, oh, who owns it? Well, it's not the same person. And we have some very specific strategies, and I don't know if it's the time or place to do it here, and that is the way in which we acquire real estate is through what we would consider a trust, or I shouldn't say we consider it, it's a trust. And the reason why we do that is because the Garn-St. Germain Act of 1982 states that you can acquire a piece of real estate or you can transfer title on a piece of real estate for estate planning purposes. So we have the trust buys the property, beneficiary is now our LLC.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I like it.
So that would be
at the end of the day, let's say this. At the end of the day, if this is the first time you're hearing creative financing, I know we're getting in the weeds a little bit. At the end of the day, when it comes to creative financing, these are strategies in order to help people solve problems that the traditional market can't solve. Now, because of that, we have some very specific creative solutions that we can provide to help people out in these scenarios. And we've done it for so long now that it's like second nature to us. But if this is the first time you're hearing trust, sub 2, due on sales clause, it could feel like it's complicated. But at the end of the day, actually, these transactions are actually less complicated than traditional deals because you have very few parties involved. In this transaction, it's me or our company, the seller, and an attorney or a title company. If you go through a traditional sale, you have an agent, you have a mortgage lender or a bank, right? And an attorney and the buyer. So you have all of these additional people. Instead, we can streamline the process because we're working directly with the seller and the attorney.
Awesome. Zach, I appreciate you kind of pointing that out. I was going to kind of lead into, right, if it is somebody's first time hearing about this, right, you guys are there to coach, right? Can you talk a little bit about kind of what your organization looks like for somebody that might be hearing about this for the first time that would like to learn more?
Yeah, of course. So look, I didn't have any real estate experience 10 years ago, and I was trying to navigate my first deal, and I actually was taught by my business partner and father-in-law, Chris, who got crushed in 2008 and then guided me. And then I joined the family company, and then we started doing a ton of deals together. So that's the same way for you. If you're just getting started in this real estate, you look at it and you say, okay, if I want to get involved in real estate, let's look at the different real estate niches, right? And then let's identify which one I am most related to. Because you got wholesale, you got multifamilies, within that, you got rehabs, you got with the fix and flips, you have syndications, and then you have deals like ours, like creative financing, right? So once you identify the right niche, then you start to say, okay, well, if I can most relate to this. So somebody that's listening to this, they might say, well, I really want to support an underserved audience. That's roughly 80% of people out there can't qualify for bank loans. We sell to people on rent to own. Or I want to help out people in our community that are behind on payments, right? In my local sellers. So like having that behind there where transactions not just about money, it's about helping people and serving people. And then once you identify that niche, now let's look at who's doing it, who's actively doing it now and has been for a long time. and who's completely up to date with their techniques. And then once you do that, then you put the blinders on so we can get rid of shiny object syndrome, because shiny object syndrome is a lack of commitment. So then we get to commit to the niche and start working those deals. And if that commitment's with us, then we literally lock arms with you and guide you through every aspect of the deal and help you do deals and put deals into your portfolio. So that way you can take advantage of this strategy and shortcut your way to this versus going through all of the challenges and the hiccups that me and my business partner went through.
Love it. We talk often about finding somebody that's kind of where you're at or has what you want, and then ask them, right, for mentorship, right, to get to where you want to go.
Sure.
In the introduction, you mentioned kind of W-2 employees.
Yeah.
What is the transformational process to help W-2 employees become real estate investors?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at the end of the day, I think when somebody says I want to retire, or a lot of this pops up because they're sick and tired of their job or the position that they're in, or they look at their boss and they say, I don't want to be that person. I'm sure you guys come across these people all the time because, you're helping people build up their own banks, right? So that they can make better decisions.
I even know some people who are like, man, my business partner is just, all about his hair and good looks. I really need to maybe do something different. So yeah, Zach, I get it. I've heard these stories.
That's what my business partner says about me.
Yeah.
Maybe not the hair, but good look. And so then once they're like, okay, I'm sick and tired of this, what most people don't realize, and what I had to suffer through, because, hashtag entrepreneur and grinding and all that stuff is really cool nowadays, is that there's a massive transformational process that needs to happen to eventually become a business owner. And really what we're providing within our community is a proven business model on how to buy real estate a certain way and then how to be able to create profits from that piece of real estate. So we really focus on three major components. Number one is the mindset. So I know that word is also overused quite often as well. But what I've always learned, and I've been taught by a lot of people smarter than me, is that your development is never going to outpace your income. So having that understanding that there's a drastic change that needs to happen. Often I get on the phone with people and they're like, I make $100,000 a year, which is amazing. Right. A great earning. But then they say, and I want to get involved in real estate because I want to make $500,000 in the next 12 months. And I'm like, there's a huge gap of development that we need to go through in order to ensure that you produce enough value in this world to create $500,000. Because what you're telling me is you make $100,000, which means that you bring about $100,000 worth of value into this world, because we only get paid by the value we bring.
Mm-hmm.
So we focus on that mindset and continue to provide them with, support in regards to behaviors and, dealing with challenges or blocks, attitude, things of that sort. So once we've developed that, which is roughly 80% of this, then we then focus on the skill sets. Now, these are skill sets that they're going to learn for the rest of their lives. I was just on a podcast earlier today, and we were talking about how it doesn't matter what happens in the economy right now or today, because I know there's a lot of challenges going on. If we focus on us and the skill sets in which we can develop, I want to ensure by people working with us that doesn't matter what happens in the economy, you have the ability to pick up the phone or structure a deal so you can always provide for your family. Because I know, like, worst case scenario, I know I can go out there and find a real estate deal right now. And that's because of the skill sets that I've been able to develop over the past 10 years. And then once we have those skill sets, now it's about implementing the right systems. So that way we can now we can start going from being solopreneur, the CEO, if that's what people are choosing to do, because now they can build up a team and put the systems and process in place. And then that flywheel just continues to work itself, because once you make a certain amount of money, you got to go back to the mindset, rework that skill set, systems, and continue to build and develop. And that's really what transforms people into investors.
I've got one.
Speechless.
Well, no, I loved it. Right. There's a lot of the stuff that you just touched on is a lot of things that we talk about as well. Right. Mindset is a huge piece to the conversations that we have, especially initially with somebody. I was thinking of a conversation I had the other day. A gentleman came in and He said, "Hey, I've got some great opportunities here in front of me, and my income is looking like it's going to quadruple." And he goes, "To be honest, I'm a little scared." He's like, "I've never made that amount of money in my life." And he's like, "I'm reaching out now so that I can start to kind of get mentally prepared so I know what to do before this money starts coming in." And so, right, addressing the mindset is critical to someone's success. So I love that piece to it. Zach, what I was going to ask is maybe an example, right? Do you have an example of a student that has come in over the years that has kind of gone through that process and found success?
Yeah, for sure. One that always comes to mind is his name's Rick. He's out of New Hampshire, Nashua, New Hampshire. He worked as a government contractor for 30 years.
Wow.
And the reason why he joined us is because he didn't see enough income or enough retirement at the end of the day. He was like, I worked all this time and I don't feel as though I can sustain a good lifestyle if I continue to do what I'm doing. And he then, of course, tried all the side hustles, tried all of a couple different other real estate niches. But then when he joined our community, he then realized, okay, well, if I can then put these systems to work, I can then create a better future. Now, this particular gentleman actually took him 13 months to get his first deal. Talk about commitment. 13 months to get his first deal. Now, why is that the case? And that's something that we measure. We measure time to first deal, and we measure how many deals per student in our community, because this is all about helping people one transaction at a time build up a business. Now, what happened was he was a part of a bureaucracy and was told what to do for 30 years. He was actually ex-military too, worked on a submarine. But when you then jump into the world of entrepreneurship, now you are your boss. And there's a lot of challenges that come with it. He had to completely learn skill sets of communicating when it comes to seller calls or working with sellers. So he had to develop that whole skill set, and then had to develop the ability to go out there and train people like virtual assistants to help him develop more leads, because everything is based on key performance indicators. So that way we can make predictable growth. So we had to really help him work through a lot of the quote unquote entrepreneur skills, right? In addition to real estate investing, because this was the business he wanted to build long-term. Rick now his average deal is somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 when it comes to his real estate deals, and now coaches people all across the country. He's a prime example. If you just stick with the process and stay disciplined and committed, and really follow a system that's been proven, you can certainly create an amazing retirement. He retired in about under 3 years from the time that he sat when he joined our community.
Now, Zach, can we go back to, and because the one thing you've talked about is that there's 3 paydays.
Mm-hmm.
Could you maybe walk us through maybe an example deal regarding those paydays?
Yeah, for sure. So the way in which the 3 payday system works, which we've trademarked, is so it doesn't matter which strategy you use to acquire it. You can use any one of those strategies. So we're going to buy it creatively. We're going to either buy it as a subject to, owner financing, or a lease purchase. Once we own that property, really what that means is we have agreed to a certain purchase price, we've agreed to a certain monthly payment, and we've agreed to a certain time frame on which that deal needs to be cashed out. Then what we do is we then go look for and work with people that need time to qualify for bank loans. It's roughly 80%, somewhere between 60 and 80% of people that want to purchase a property cannot qualify for a bank loan. America, right? It's like 70% of Americans have a 650 credit score or less. Banks are not going to accept them, especially with the interest rates right now. We tend to have a debt to income ratio challenge, or what we would all consider now an affordability challenge. So you have all of these people that cannot qualify for a bank loan today, but they just need a path. So then what we do is once we purchase the property using one of those strategies, we'll go sell the property for a higher purchase price, a higher monthly payment, in a certain time frame. That then buyer will need to come to the table with a non-refundable deposit, both upfront and typically over time, anywhere from 3 to 10% upfront, and then up to 20% over time in most circumstances, at the elevated purchase price. So that non-refundable deposit is your payday one. So you go place a buyer in the house, you now get a certain amount of money. And I'll give you an example in just a second. Then our payday two then is your buyer is now paying you rent on the property. in addition to, so now you're collecting a certain amount of money. You're then paying off the original expenses that you agreed to with the seller, and now you're collecting the difference. That's the passive cash flow. You can't get much more passive than that because these buyers are acting like and are treated like a homeowner. So you have no management. They don't call you in the middle of the night if the toilet breaks. They are treated like and are acting like a homeowner. So you're simply collecting that check. That's your payday 2. Your payday 3 then is the equity that's built into the property when that buyer goes and qualifies for that bank loan, because we're simply helping them bridge that gap. We're bringing them from not bankable to bankable. Now, once they're bankable, they then go get their own loan. They cash us out, and there's typically equity in that deal as well. So now you're getting paid not only now, you're getting paid monthly, and then you're also getting paid in X amount of years down the line when they qualify for that bank loan. So let me just walk through like an example. So we bought a property recently. We sold it to a couple. This particular couple, the husband has a great paying job, engineer. He's actually being relocated from Massachusetts to Connecticut because the company he works for is opening up a new facility. Now, and then the wife has a pretty good job as well, and they make, I don't know, let's say like $13,000 a month. You would then think, like, why can't they qualify for a bank loan? Well, what happened was during over the past couple of years, their third child went through some challenging challenging health issues. I believe he actually battled a portion of brain cancer. He's doing great. So if you guys were wondering about that, the child's doing awesome. So what happened was they had to, because their insurance wasn't covering all of it, they had to then put a lot of money on credit cards, which drastically affected their credit. Well, they've come out of it now and they pay down a ton of credit card debt, but they're still not bankable today. So when we went ahead and presented them the rent to own option, they then came to the table. I believe it was like $13,000 down on a $400,000 house. But then we're paying us basically every 6 months an additional $75,000 to $10,000. So eventually their down payment within 24 months was at 10%, which is what a lot of banks like to see. Mm-hmm. So that's all your non-refundable deposit. They're renting the property from us and we're collecting roughly a $400 cash flow spread. So it's your payday 2. And then that property will have projected wise at the end of 36 months, which is the term that we gave them based upon all of their, based upon their whole background check and their mortgage rate and estate, there'll be another roughly $25,000 at cash out. So that's the way your paydays work. So roughly say $40,000 up front, like $400 in cash flow over 36 months or each month over 36 months, and then another $25,000 when the property cashes out. That's how these deals work. And we're constantly seeing, the changes that we're making in people's lives, which is really cool. And that's what I mentioned earlier, which is, creative financing or the strategies that we're using, yes, are very profitable, but every deal that we do, it's affecting the seller's lives. It's affecting the buyer's lives. If we're doing it with a community member, it's affecting the community member as an investor. It's affecting ours. We're always affecting multiple people's lives in a positive fashion in each one of these deals.
Zach, in that example that you just shared, how much money did you guys put in the deal originally?
Yeah, great question. On that particular deal, we put down $8,500 to the seller. That seller we bought the property, $8,500 down plus closing costs. The seller held a $32,000 second position mortgage on the property at 0% interest, no payments, all due in a balloon in 72 months. Which will pay out that balloon when the buyer gets their loan. And then we took on like a 316 mortgage, I believe is what it was, or a 360 mortgage. I don't know the exact numbers, at like a 4.25% interest rate. So great little deal.
Zach, could you maybe broadly share, how do you help people? This seems a little complex. There's a lot of moving parts here. Yeah. So where do you guys come in and how do you help?
To the student?
Yeah.
Yeah, so depending on how they work with us, we've created a very specific community and program based around helping them do deals. We like to say it's in the trenches because we know that there are multiple moving parts, especially if you're first getting started in this business, but also because there's a huge lack of support past selling a course in our industry as well. And the third reason why we created this was because we could have done just deals in our local real estate markets. But instead, as we started to evolve as investors, we really wanted to help more people do deals and really help them affect their lives long term as well. So we help for everything from lead generation, meaning helping them make phone calls and communicate with sellers, to structuring of the deal once we have all the information, to the paperwork, to connecting with the right vendors or people, to helping them market the property, to going through the buyer process and vetting, to eventually getting those paydays in hand. Help through that entire process within our community.
Awesome. Zach, let's talk about next steps. If somebody's out there listening and they want to kind of take that next step, what's the best thing that they can do?
Yeah, I'd love to offer up our first Amazon best-selling book. My guess is we're listening to a very well-educated audience, especially around the holidays right now. And no better time to read a book and start working on your 2025 goals. It's called Real Estate on Your Terms. I'll give you the link. It's wickedsmartbooks.com/Anthony. That's wickedsmartbooks.com/Anthony. And that really dives deeper into every single aspect of this business, all the way from our origination stories to how our paydays work, to examples inside the book as well. Because I know we've kind of hit on a couple different points, and this will really give a nice blanket overview of all the different aspects of this business.
Awesome.
Zach, man, I appreciate making that offer out to the listeners. And man, what one of the things that excited me was this idea of learning kind of this creative financing strategy, but doing it in a community. Right?
Yeah.
Is, man, to hear some of these strategies, probably new to a lot of people, but to be able to kind of get connected with these guys would be a great spot to get started.
And it's important to be in a community, which is a great segue because we have launched our Facebook community as well. That's talking about infinite banking and ways to create passive income more than your monthly expenses. Zach, your information will be in our show notes. We appreciate all that you're doing. What I like about this is a win-win. Not only are you helping your students, but there's people that unbankable that are in a unique temporary situation, and that you guys have the ability to help people. And that's how you create the most value, which is how you create the most income for yourself. So, Zach, thank you for coming, and go make it a fantastic day.
Take care.
If you like this video, I know you're like this one. And if you want to learn how investors use infinite banking to increase their returns and lower their taxes, check this out. And if you have some questions and want to see if infinite banking is for you, hop on a discovery call with us. Link for that will be in the description.